Hey, Shalom, Makim, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth, and that's still teaching this truth. And much peace, love, and salutation to the 144, beginning with the 144,000, as well as to the large multitude that believe and who Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai will deliver in these last days. I am the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas Camp, coming back today with another lesson. And Lord willing, this lesson will be quick, edifying, and to the point. As long as it's supposed to go in the spirit. And, I've seen this article here. I'm not really too sure what the title is going to be. It may be something along the lines of whose look was more stout than his fellows, as it is written in the book of Daniel. As it's written in the book of Daniel, that he had a look that was more stout than his fellows, meaning America. Okay, Babylon the Great, whose look is more stout than the fellows, meaning these different nations that is in league with America, specifically these Nato and EU nations. As a matter of fact, let's actually go ahead and grab that real quick. It's in Daniel, the 7th chapter. And I don't have anything written. I'm just going to go in the spirit here. Daniel, the 7th chapter. Let me just type in the word stout real quick. Yeah, Daniel 7:20. Okay, my bad. All right, so this is the book of Daniel, chapter 7. And I'm going to start up a little bit. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 19. All right, it says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. And remember, this is the prophet Daniel seeing a vision. All right, it says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. And this fourth beast is talking about the Roman Empire. All right, because he's seen a vision, all right, of 4 different beasts. And when those 4 different beasts, all right, represented the Assyria, the Assyrian Babylonian Empire. All right. Then you had the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greco-Roman Empire, and then you had the Roman Empire, known as Pax Romana, when the Roman Empire ruled the whole known world. Okay, so it says, and I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others. And what made the Roman Empire diverse from all the others, all right, was the fact, one thing was the fact that they didn't have a king that sat upon the throne, whereas it was like a monarchy. All right, you had pretty much elected officials that would sit and be elected in, as you have today. Like you have the elections of the presidency, and they get elected in, as well as like in France, in Germany, and things of that nature. You have prime ministers and officials that are elected in, and then you got the Senate. You have Congress. All those things and all these ways go back to ancient Greece and specifically ancient Rome. The 2 parties, the plebeians and the patricians. You have the Democrats and the Republicans. That's what made the Roman Empire diverse. All right, continuing on, it says, which was diverse from all others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron. Okay, and iron is not as precious as gold. Okay, because you got, if you think about the image, the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, that Daniel interpreted in Daniel the 2nd chapter. Nebuchadnezzar seen an image of a statue whose head was as gold, which represented the Babylonian Empire. And then you had the breastplate of silver, which was the Medo-Persian Empire. Then you had the loins of brass, which was the Greco-Roman Empire. Then you had the legs of iron, which represented the Roman Empire. Now, like I stated, you can liken each section as a kingdom that became more decadent, but each metal got stronger, representing, the military might of these different, the military might of these different kingdoms. It got more decadent, but it got stronger. You see, so it says, whose teeth were of iron. Okay, and teeth represents its military, represents its strength. You see, It says, and his nails of brass. Okay, and his nails of brass. That's why it's known, you have the Greco-Roman Empire, which pretty much got amalgamated. The Greco-Roman Empire got amalgamated into the Roman Empire. You see? It says, which devoured, breaking pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. You see, you use your feet to crush things. And that's exactly what the Roman Empire did. Okay, it went throughout the known world and pretty much dominated the whole Mediterranean area, the whole world, the known world at that time. Now let's take a look at this. It says, and of the 10 horns which were in his head, which were the 10 common markets at that time. I can't name all 10 off the top of my head, but you had the Anglo-Saxons. You had the Anglo-Saxons, you had the Franks, you had the Lombards, you had the Ostrogoths, the Hurreli, I'm already missing 5 of them. But it was pretty much the 10 common markets at that time, which now are the different EU nations, which now are like 28. You see? So it says, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up. You see, there was another horn that came up, which before whom 3 fell. You see, it says, and before whom 3 fell. You had the French, the Spanish, and the British. You see, you had the Spanish American War, the Spanish American War, or rather say the French American War, the Spanish American War. Then you had the American Revolution. You see, where with those 3 wars that took place, all right, America itself became an established country. You see, so it says, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes. You see, and a mouth that spake very great things. Okay, and you see that happening right now. America pretty much runs and operates NATO in the EU. Anything that America says goes, point blank, period. And you've seen that, you've seen that when it came to particular presidents making particular moves. If one of the NATO and EU nations says something in America doesn't agree with it, they don't do it. But you see, now we're coming to a time where these different nations, all right, they're going to hate the whore. You see, they're getting fed up with America's BS. You see, that's why when you're reading that in Revelation 17, it states that, that the Lord gave them a time. What was it? 1 hour with the beast. You see, that they would agree, and that time is running up. You see, it says, in a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. More stout than his fellows. And when you get that word stout, all right, when you get this word stout, let's get it. All right, that word stout is rob. Okay, rob. And when you just get that word there, it says great, figurative of power. You see, when you think of NATO, all right, you think of America. Okay, because what makes America strong is its military might, man, and it's able to push forth its policies worldwide through its military. Okay, that's why it's able to operate. That's why these different nations are able to operate and sell mainly through what? The petrodollar. You see, and it uses its military might, its air force, its proxy wars that it sets up. Okay, through these different NATO and EU nations, also waging war and being allies all together, but they pretty much walk at the helm of America and what America says. You see, captain, chief. You see that? That's why when you read in Revelation, that whore that sat upon the beast, that had the golden cup in her hand, is America. You see, America's able to push forth its policies, its philosophies, its doctrines all worldwide. Through this beast system, which is a revival of the ancient Roman Empire all over again. Now, when you go to this article, it says Moscow. It says U.S. using NATO to absorb countries into the empire. You see that? To absorb countries into the empire. And then it says it's using NATO to do it. You see, because in the ancient Roman Empire, you had something called vassal states. You know, you had something called vassals. Like, for example, Israel was a vassal of the Roman Empire. You pretty much were able to do, quote unquote, pretty much do your own thing, but you had to pay tribute to the Romans. You see, that's why the wicked scribes and the Pharisees, you know, they were pretty much good and comfortable to a sense. You see, because they were in league with Rome. You see, because Israel was a vassal state unto the Roman Empire. Okay, so it reads, it says, Washington will not hesitate to use its allies as cannon fodder if it deems it necessary, Russia's security chief has said. So what is cannon fodder? Let's look up what cannon fodder is. Cannon fodder. Cannon fodder. It says soldiers regarded merely as material to be expanded in war. So just look at that as material. Okay, that's what cannon fodder is, material. Let's read that again. Soldiers regarded merely as material to be expanded in war. And that's literally what soldiers are, man. When you sign up for the military, you sign up for the Air Force or the Marines or the Navy, you know, you got the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army, and now you got the I think I'm missing one, because you got the 6th branch of military, which is the Space Force, but you got the Air Force, the Space Force, the Marines, the Navy, the National Guard, and the Army. I think those are all 6, if I'm not mistaken. But pretty much when you sign that contract, you know, you're on a contract, and there's nothing that you can do within that contract. You know, once you sign for those 4 years or those however many years that how many ever years it is, that's it. Ain't no getting out of that. And whatever they tell you to do, you do. They tell you to you're gonna be in Afghanistan for 8 months, you going. If they tell you you're gonna be in Iraq for a year, you're gonna be in Iraq for a year. Whatever they tell you to do, you do. Whatever they tell you to eat, you eat. You know, that's all that it is, and you're pretty much used as cannon fodder, as it says. Soldiers regarded merely as material to be expanded in war. You see, to expand your military, to expand your military might. Nothing more than just material. Okay, and that's what, and also too, these different NATO and EU nations, they're getting tired of being used as cannon fodder. They're getting tired of being used and pushed around as just America's hoe. You see, America is the mistress of witchcrafts. You know, America's the mistress. You know, when you the mistress, that means that you got other little hoes that work underneath you. You know what I'm saying? But America's the mistress of witchcrafts. You see? Reading on. Let me just park the car real quick. Alrighty. So reading on, it says the never-ending expansion of NATO has enabled the U.S. to turn many nations into its puppets. You see that? To its puppets. And that's what you've seen happening for so long. You see? And that lines up with Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunk. Okay, Jeremiah 51. This is Jeremiah 51, verse 7. It says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand that made all the earth drunken. You see that? That made all the earth drunken with its philosophies, with its doctrines. You see, with its laws. You know, it's blasphemies, you know, pretty much spreading forth Moism, you know, transformerism, you know, women's liberation, all these different things that really brings forth decadence to a nation. America promotes it worldwide and tells other nations that it's okay. It says the nations have drunken of her wine. You see that? Therefore, the nations are mad. You see, the nations are mad, meaning what? They're inebriated and they're drunk. They're mad. They act foolishly. And it's all due beginning with Babylon. You see? So it said the never-ending expansion of NATO has enabled the U.S. to turn many nations into its puppets, helping Washington to cling to its hegemony. Nikolay Patrushev, the secretary of Russia's National Security Council, has said in an op-ed for the Razvedich magazine issued by Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service SVR and published on Friday. Patrushev claimed that the West often resorts to military force, corrosion, privatization of elites, and color revolutions to achieve global domination. And that's exactly what they do. And there's plenty of examples of you seeing that, man. Look at you had the war in Iraq. What did they use? They used propaganda stating that Saddam Hussein had weapons of WMDs. All right, WMDs. All right, which gave them the green light to pretty much go over there to Iraq and to pretty much wage war in Iraq. Afghanistan. You see? Then they used a proxy. They used a puppet by the name of, what was the guy's name? Osama bin Laden. You know, and then you had the whole orchestration of the 911 that took place. That's what America does, man. You see, they'll throw these FFs out, F flags out. You see, and cause and go into another nation and completely just ramsack it, man. Libya. You have Muammar Gaddafi. You know, they did the same thing in Libya. They tried to do the same thing in Syria, but Russia stepped through, and that's biblical prophecy, man. You see, Russia will be a guard, as it says in Ezekiel the 38th chapter. But it says what? Often resorts to military force, corrosion, privatization of elites, and color revolutions to achieve global domination. And what is a color revolution? You had a color revolution that took place in Iran back in I want to say it was like in the 60s. I want to say it was called the Iranian Revolution. All right, as a matter of fact, Iranian Revolution. 1979. I thought there was one that was earlier, but this is the one. And this one, when you go into the history of it, this one was backed by America. You see? But let's actually grab a precept real quick. Psalm 140. Or is it Psalm 130 and 4? Let me just see real quick. Okay, it must be Psalm 140. Psalm 140. Right. Psalm 140 and 1, it says, to the chief musician, a psalm of David. It says, deliver me, O Yahweh, from the evil man. And who is this evil man talking about? This evil man is talking about Esau. All right, the man of sin, whose blessing is a sword. You see? The only way that we can be delivered out of the grips of this devil, because he's in power right now, is through Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, it says, preserve me from the violent man. Come on now. Who's the violent man on the planet Earth, man? I mean, we just said it. All right, his blessing, Esau's blessing is the sword. Okay, Genesis 27 tells you that. And he just promotes violence worldwide. And he uses his sword worldwide. You see? It says, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. You see, continually. Because when you look at how many years America, all right, let's actually look it up. How many years has America been at war since it has been a nation? Check this out. It says, this morning I discovered an interesting statistic. America has been at war 93% of the time, 222 out of 239 years since 1776. Research conducted by the Jane Group and Geo Television Network reveals that the United States has been at war about 225 out of 243 years, which is roughly around the same time. The U.S. has been at war out of 225 out of 243 years. Like, that's crazy. That's pretty much a majority of its existence has been at war and been at the offensive of it too. You see? So who's continually gathered together for war? Esau is. Okay? This whole beast system. 225 out of 243 years, man. Okay? It says the official has blasted the U.S.-led military bloc. It's the U.S.-led military bloc. The U.S.-led military bloc. The hammer of the whole earth. Okay? The official has blasted the U.S.-led military bloc for what he called duplicity. What does duplicity mean? Deceitfulness, double dealing, doubleness, deceitfulness. So being deceitful. Arguing that while NATO has always claimed to stand for peace, it has waged war or threatened military action against countries that oppose Washington's policies. You see, they quote unquote stand for peace, like they're going to bring forth peace. You see, but it wages war if you oppose what they got going on. You see, as a matter of fact, that's another prophecy or another scripture. Psalm 55. Let's get that. Psalm 55, verse 21. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. Let's get that word smoother. It was smoother than butter. Okay, smoother. That word is chalak. Okay, chalak. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. To be smooth, slippery, to make smooth, lie, forge, fabricate. You see, they'll fabricate and forge a lie in the guise of peace to really destroy you. And that's what these devils do worldwide, man. They do that worldwide. And they do it to reap the benefits and to reap the resources of these different nations, man. To make themselves rich. You see? By way of using the sword. Of words. You see? Of words. Smooth. You see that? Deceptive words. You see that word deceptive there? You see? They'll use deceptive words. You know? It's a war on terrorism. They'll use that T word, terrorism, to say it's a war against it, but really they're the ones waging it. And then they'll use propaganda in the media, which is all witchcraft. You know, it's all sorcery and witchcraft to get the people to think that there's really a quote unquote dictator in this land that's throwing babies out of incubators and just completely got the people ruled by iron fists, and they need to go over there and help the people. It's crazy, man. And it's literally witchcraft. You see? It says NATO's military power is used to maintain Western hegemony, economic enslavement. You see, economic enslavement because you're enslaved to debt. You see, they'll enslave you to that thick clay, that abatyat. You see, as it says in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. In economic enslavement and political pressure on states that pose no military threat to the alliance. Patrushev stated, adding that members of the bloc have taken part in more than 200 conflicts across the world over the past 7 decades. They have taken part in more than 200 conflicts, which is probably more than that, across the world over the past 7 decades, 70 years. You see? It says, meanwhile, Patrushev continued, Washington regards the armies of allies as colonial troops and would eagerly use them as cannon fodder if necessary without putting its own exceptional people in harm's way. You see, they'll use pawns. They'll put these different allies, these different nations, NATO nations and EU nations armies out there first to pretty much do the dirty work. And if we got to come in, if America got to come in, yeah, we'll just drop some bombs with the Air Force and get them out the way that way. But y'all go in there and do it. That's why we opened up what it says that his look was more stout than his fellows. You see? It says, comment, indeed, Lindsey Graham was right up front about it. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, during a meeting with Zelensky, which Zelensky is pretty much the quote-unquote president of Ukraine, it says, and this is a quote, and the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. The best money we've ever spent on the investment by the U.S. in the war in Ukraine. The best money we've ever spent. Hold on.
Thank you so much.
Let's listen to it again.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
Now it's...
See, it's the best money we ever spent because war is a racket, man. You know? Oh, what's that quote by Rothschild quote? Let me not say that out loud. Blood, streets, war, buy. Let's do that. Yep. Baron, you see the word there, right? A British banker and politician from the wealthy international Rothschild family once said that the best time to buy is when there is blood in the streets. In simple words, when everyone else is selling, it's a great time to purchase. You see, when everyone else is selling, that's the best time to buy. Whenever blood is in the street, whenever war is running rampant, that's the best time to buy. You see? And they understand and know that war is a monetary gain. You see, we read it in Psalm 140. It says, "Continually are they gathered together for war." You see? Let's continue going back. It says, as was John Kerry, it says, "For those who think Ukraine is in a proxy war, watch this. The U.S. is willing to destroy an entire nation just to weaken Russia." Let's take a listen.
Being able to take an amount which equals, what, about 5% of our military budget, but actually less than 5% of our military budget each year to help the Ukrainians is about the best national defense spending I think we've ever done. We're losing no lives in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are fighting heroically against Russia that has 1,500 nuclear weapons aimed at us. It's like, so we're diminishing and devastating the Russian military for a very small amount of money relative to what we spend in the rest of defense. A weakened Russia is a good thing, and the best thing we can do for America is to see people who have nuclear weapons aimed at us getting weaker.
You see, and they're saying, like, look, we're not even using that. He pretty much let you know that it's a proxy war. You see? That's why all this quote unquote funding is going over to Ukraine. Billions in aid to Ukraine, billions in aid here, but here it is here in America, it's just running the shit. You know, you got all these quote unquote immigrants being moved in, you know, taking up the cities, getting funding, and people are fed up. It's about to be complete hell breaking loose in these streets very soon. Okay? It says the West, quote unquote, perceives Russia as a constant threat because it remembers that it was the Soviet Union that played a crucial role in dismantling the colonial system, according to Petrushev. And the Lord is, as it says in Ezekiel 38 chapter, the Lord is putting hooks back in Gog and Magog's jaws, bringing them back into that USSR, Soviet Union spirit. United Soviet Socialist Republic. You see, and that's the whole reason as to why NATO was created, was to pretty much combat the Soviet Union, Russia. Because ultimately it's biblical prophecy. You see, Satan will be loosed out of his prison for 1,000 years and go out to deceive the four corners of the earth and to gather Gog and Magog to battle, as it says in Revelation 20. You see, as a result, he said, the West is using the full range of tools at its disposal against Russia, including sanctions and its massive system of media resources that help it concoct, quote unquote, information frenzy campaigns across the globe, and America does that continually. That's why when you go to these different news stations, it's all script. It's all everything that's being said is all the same. It's witchcraft. It's all sorcery. Moscow has repeatedly protested NATO expansion, seeing it as a major national security threat and arguing that the increased military buildup on its borders leads to heightened tensions in Europe. And that's who's the one that's doing this. It's Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, man. He's the one that mustereth the host of the battle. He's the king of hosts, the Lord of hosts. You see, the Lord of armies. Scripture says that the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He turneth it whithersoever he will. So he's the one that's putting these different NATO nations in place, because ultimately this is all going to happen to formulate World War III. Okay? Russian President Vladimir Putin has named the risk of Kiev joining the military bloc as one of the key reasons behind the Ukraine conflict, because really, in all actuality, Ukraine used to be a part of the USSR. It used to be a part of Russia anyway, until it broke off. You see? And then you got Ukraine, them wanting to pretty much amalgamate Ukraine into NATO, which pretty much puts NATO at Russia's back door. And they don't want that. You see? So like the Lord said, we'll end it off with a couple more precepts. As the Lord said in Matthew the 24th chapter, this is all prophecy. Matthew 24 verse 7, it says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." You see, and we're seeing that. We're seeing nations and kingdoms going up against each other. China, Taiwan, Ukraine and Russia, Russia and the United States. South Korea, North Korea. You really don't hear that too much. You got all these different nations rising up against. You got South Africa rising up against the French that are in their that are in their land. You got all these nations rising up against one another, because ultimately war is ruin. You see, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Hell, there was just a large earthquake in Morocco, where thousands of people are reported dead. Pestilences and famines taking place. You see, the Lord is clearly showing you what's getting ready to happen. So, I just wanted to report on that. Lord willing, this was an edifying lesson. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and that's still teaching his truth, and much peace, love, and salutation, beginning with the 144,000 as well as to the 1/3. Until next time, I say shalom.